It's Wednesday, January 25th, 2017, and time for WorthPoint Chats with Harry Rinker. I'm Greg Watkins, the editor at WorthPoint.com. And Harry, how are we doing tonight?
Harry, yes, I'm here.
Harry.
With a lot of interesting stuff to talk about tonight. First of all, sad news, Mary Tyler Moore passed away today, which is Wednesday, or maybe it was last night, but they announced the death today, so I'm assuming it's today, Wednesday, January 5th today. And Mary Tyler Moore represents a very interesting collectible aspect to her. And you're probably wondering what that is.
Well, she had her television show.
Well, she had a
Dyke show also.
No, okay. She starred in two very important television shows, the Dick Van Dyke Show, right?
Right.
And the Mary Tyler Moore Show. But the two shows are a decade apart. One in the 60s, one in the 70s. But they also show what happened to family television between the 60s and the 70s. So let's take a look, first of all. Let's talk about TV shows in the late 50s and 60s. They were family entertainment, okay?
Yeah.
Shows like Leave It to Beaver, Nelson, I would say Ricky Nelson, but that's
Ozzie and Harriet.
Ozzie and Harriet. All those shows, even though they were not totally kid-related, they had a strong kid aspect to them. And there were kids at home in those shows. You know, Life with Father, all that stuff, the Brady Bunch, all that business, right? And they spun off a host of collectibles. There was always a lunchbox. There was always a board game. There was a lot of three-dimensional stuff associated with those shows, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So now along comes the Dick Van Dyke Show, which doesn't have kids, just adults. And so it's more of an adult show focus. And so kids would buy the collectibles and licensed products associated with shows and play with them. And that's what they remember as a kid, right? But when the adult shows came along, the licensing slowed down. Now, the Dick Van Dyke Show is interesting because it still had some three-dimensional kid-related stuff. For example, let's type in Dick Van Dyke Show game into WorthPoint. Okay.
Okay. So before we do that, I put up Mary Tyler Moore.
No, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do her. I want to do her second.
Sure. It's a Dick Van Dyke coloring book.
Yeah, I know that, but we're going to find out on the Dick Van Dyke Show too.
Dick Van Dyke game. Somebody has already searched that.
Or Dick Van Dyke Show game, either way. All right. Now, notice that when you type that in, okay, there it is.
Yeah.
Now, in a way, the mid to late 60s was the end of the great box board game television show era. And this was one of the last ones. And it's interesting because at first I didn't remember a Dick Van Dyke game until I did some research work on WorthPoint to make sure it existed, okay?
Yeah.
And the reason I know it existed is I was typing in Dick Van Dyke Show and up came Dick Van Dyke Show game. Now, this game didn't sell very well, obviously. You can just see by looking at it, it's not kid focused, right?
Right.
So one of the reasons it's still worth $160 or whatever it sold for, although interestingly enough on here, let's go back to the sales result. Interestingly enough, in the entire search for this is the only example that showed up. And this is a 15 price or 14, 16 price?
This was last October.
Okay.
2016.
It sold for $125, okay? Now, go back to the general category of Dick Van Dyke Show stuff, okay?
Just Dick Van Dyke Show.
Right, okay. And what you're going to begin to see is a huge amount of flat two-dimensional stuff. Autographs, programs, booklets, comic books, and a coloring book, okay?
Yeah.
But what you don't see are the lunch boxes, costumes, any of the rest of that stuff. Look at all the signed pictures, right?
Right.
And TV guides and that type of stuff. And who are they all focused at? Adults. Okay. So here you are with Dick Van Dyke stuff. Now, obviously, you want to collect Mary Tyler Moore stuff, you're going to wind up with some crossover into here, all right? But as you go down through here, okay, I mean, it's interesting to see what's here and what's not here. Because Dick Van Dyke, of course, Chitty Chitty Bang Bang and Mary Poppins shows up here a lot too, all right? But you notice that the number of actual Dick Van Dyke show pieces are very small, all right? Meaning that you're not looking at a heavy-duty collector audience for it, all right?
Okay,
now,
yeah, I see that.
Go forward 10 years, and now we have the Mary Tyler Moore Show, which is totally adult humor, right?
Yes.
So now when you type in Mary Tyler Moore Show, okay, you get, I think it.
Whoops. You still there, Harry? I think you hit your mute button, Harry.
I'm muting up here again. Okay.
Yeah, there you go. Now you're back.
I don't know how I did that. Type in Mary Tyler Moore Show.
Uh-huh.
All right, and pull up what you got. All right, now there we see the Dick Van Dyke coloring book, right?
Yes.
But not for her show, for
No.
the earlier show, right? And then you start looking and you see all the signed autograph stuff, right? And not just for Mary Tyler Moore, but for the characters on the show, right?
Yes.
Now wait, what's that 1964 promotional something? Arthur Murray, what?
Which 1964. Oh, this one here?
Yeah, promotional album, right?
Nick at Night, Mary Tyler Moore Merit Badge.
Yeah,
Okay, so
well,
Nick at Night, that's a more modern piece.
right. Okay, right. Let's go back. Let's go back again. But what you will find interesting here are stage props. Now go back up. Right there on the left, upper left. See props from the thing. Now, not much, $19, $20, and there is a cup from the show too that's there, and I think that was only around $20.
So these are things that were just on the shelf.
On the set. And how do you know that? Grant, you better have a picture of the set with a piece on it, because anybody could get those and say they were there.
Yeah.
I mean, authenticity is a real issue here. All right.
And there's no picture showing.
Nope, none whatsoever, except a dollar bill there.
So
now there's another prop. There's another prop from the show.
Prop from the Rhoda show.
Yeah, from the Rhoda show. But notice how it all gets commingled and stuff. Stars, and so if you're going to collect Mary Tyler Moore Show, sure you want to collect stuff related to the characters too. But notice again what's not there. It's largely signature related, or TV script related, or just ordinary still photographs, right?
Yes.
And how do you make a display of that? How do you part of collecting is the ability to display what you have. Okay? And so how do you make a display of all this stuff?
Well, unless you dedicate a wall.
Yeah, all right. You can do all of that. But the point is that anybody under 40 is going to come in and look at the wall and say, "Who's that?"
Yes.
So when television moved away from evening entertainment that was family focused and family focused with a kid sub focus to pure adult education or adult things. And examples of this are Seinfeld, right? Roseanne, Seinfeld, Friends, all those shows, right?
Yeah.
They didn't spin off anything but flat collectibles. Only paper.
Yes.
And it's now almost 50 years later. I hate to say it. And people say, well, why aren't more people collecting stuff? Well, because it's no fun collecting flat stuff. I mean, you can.
Yeah.
But it's
you're right. Three-dimensional things.
Three-dimensional stuff makes exhibits.
Yeah, I see your point. And now, say in the 70s, the Planet of the Apes TV show. I had the lunchbox from Planet of the Apes.
Sure.
And I had trading cards from Planet of the Apes.
But that was that from the TV show or the movie?
That was from the trading cards were from the TV show. but from the movie, I had plastic models of the characters.
Okay, right. But see, what happens is in the history of collecting, which I know something about, obviously, is that the 1970s marked a time when movies replaced television as the primary source for licensed product.
Yeah, okay, I can see that.
Okay, think magic date, 1977.
1977, Star Wars.
Star Wars, right. And it wasn't that Star Wars was the first movie licensing. Actually, 101 Dalmatians and some of the other stuff was big stuff back in that time in that era as well. But the point is that all of a sudden TV as a source for collectibles of interest to collectors declined. The great TV cowboy eras were over. Bonanza was on its last legs. Gunsmoke was about to go off the air. I mean, seriously. And so you when you're out there evaluating this stuff, you need a sense of historical perspective. You need to understand how all this stuff fits together. And now, before somebody tweets, Harry Rinker said Mary Tyler Moore ruined collecting. No, that is not what I've said. Right? Yeah. Well, after the recent spate of he said, she said on Twitter, I'm reluctant to say anything for fear that somebody will tweet. Almost made a faux pas there. Will tweet something I didn't say as though I said it. But I think when we look at this type of stuff, we have to develop a sense of perspective. It's very important. All of this. Now, WorthPoint in its newsletter, right? Which, by the way, is free. You don't have to subscribe to WorthPoint to get your newsletter, right?
No, you can go to the WorthPoint site, and on any article page, there's a place to fill in your name and your email address, and you'll get the newsletter every other week.
Yes, and you might have to complain for 2 months, but sooner or later they get it straightened out and you wind up with it, because that's what happened with me. But that's all right. Yeah, you run Rinker on Collectibles text columns in the newsletter twice a month.
That's right.
Yes, and I'm working on a series called "The Top 10 Changes in the Last 5 Years." I think you published 2 of the 3 so far.
Yes, the first 2 are on WorthPoint. Yes.
Well, we got an email from somebody who read the first one.
Okay.
And it says, I want to take the time to let you know how much I really appreciate your Part 1 article. Nice. Always nice when people tell you they appreciate you, right?
Right.
Top 10 changes in the last 5 years. It really hit home for me, this fellow said. It was a very eye-opening article. I found that American brewing and cut glass has fallen dramatically in the last several years. Currently, cut glass is selling for almost little or nothing. Case in point, just look on eBay. Thank you very much for such a wonderful article. Now, we don't have a lot of theorists in this trade, people that have a broad knowledge of the trade from the past to present and can look into the future. I am one of the few. This is not bragging rights. This is what I've done my whole career, because I've been interested in understanding how all this stuff works together. Okay? And so the result of it is that when I do these every 5 years, and Rinker on Collectibles just turned 30, which is why I'm doing my reflections on changes in the last 5 years, in a series of 10, being like David Letterman at 10, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 2, 1. If you're interested in learning how this trade works, read those columns, seriously, because I think they're very insightful in terms of what's going on. Okay?
Right. Well,
And again, you could just go to worthpoint.com, click on, what is it, articles, or where is it?
On the articles page, under news and
articles page, and submit your name and email address, and you'll get the WorthPoint newsletter free, which also occasionally, by the way, has some of our WorthPoint chat videos on it as well.
Yeah, every issue has one episode of this chat, so you can keep up with us that way too.
Right. Okay. Now, you got a letter, an interesting letter this week, and I told you that I could talk about anything for a half an hour. Probably I could talk about anything for 2 hours, but we're going to spend the rest of the show, I think, devoted to this letter, because this is a common one. So, do you want to set the stage for this and talk a little bit about what happened here?
Sure. A friend of mine sent me an email saying that she had an uncle who passed, and going through his things, they found an outbuilding on the property filled with cases of collectibles. miniatures.
Collectibles, not in the term that we use it in the trade, but collectibles in terms of, I would call them desirables, recent products that people say.
Right. So little figurines and diecast cars and things like that. So they just wanted to know a general, ballpark figure so they could figure out the best way to get rid of them, whether they need to sell them or, and what the rough value is.
Well, let's talk about terminology, because, one of the problems we have in the trade is being able to speak in terms that everybody understands. I mean, I used to love to get the stories about collectibles, and then they would talk about antique rugs. An antique rug is not collectible. It's an antique. Okay. And I use collectibles very specifically to describe things made between about 1960 and, actually between 1980 and about 2000, which is where some of this stuff would fit. Most of it would, actually. And then I use the term desirable for more recent stuff that people collect but doesn't have a stable secondary market. Now, years ago, I created a rule. And I name rules after myself, by the way. I'm not modest about this. And one of them was Rinker's 30 years rule. For the first 30 years of anything's life, all its value is speculative. Now, that doesn't mean that because it's speculative, it doesn't mean that it sells for more than somebody paid for it. It means you can buy it, and maybe it'll sell, and maybe it won't, whatever. But if you're buying it for investment purposes and getting rid of it in less than 30 years, you're speculating. Now, the material that they sent was bought largely in the early 1990s, okay?
Yes, right.
And later. But, okay, so now you take 1990 and 2016, and now you have 26 years. You're almost at the 30-year mark. And the 30-year mark is significant because that's when I expect to see a stable secondary market where you can look on WorthPoint, or you can look somewhere and you can see the prices steady across the board, piece after piece after piece after piece. All right?
Yeah.
So okay. But on the other hand, these things are also collector editions, which the minute you hear it, the hair on the back of your neck should stand up. I would say on the top of your head, but you don't have enough up there, nor do I.
No.
To make that theory work. So we're not talking about the hair on the back of our neck here. But anyway, okay, so here they are. This guy bought all this collector edition stuff. And it breaks down into a whole pile of stuff. And let's take a look at some of the things he bought. Here is a drawer full of global miniatures, right?
Yes.
Which are Disney. I don't know if they're Disney related or not, because the Disney pieces didn't have global marks on the back.
Some of them are Disney. Some of them are marked Hummel.
Yeah, but the ones that are marked Hummel are not Disney, because Disney never licensed with global or Hummel.
Right.
So one of the things is when you're sorting through this stuff, you no matter how he has it stored, you better have the sort right, because global and Hummel are one thing, Disney products are another. All right. So here's some examples. Let's take a look at some of the individual figures. I think you have some of those, right?
Yes.
All right. Okay. Here's a little thing. The original H.M. Hummel figure miniatures, and they're going to be the animals and some of the other stuff. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Let's see what else we have here. Now, here's a Disney figure, not global. Okay. But we'll look at the mark on the bottom, and these were sold at Disney World and Disneyland, okay? And they are souvenir pieces, and they can be bought other ways too. And let's look at the next. Do we have the picture of his bottom of him? No.
I didn't upload that one.
Okay, all right. Well, then we have those. Here we have a creche with no markings on it at all. At least not that we know of. Okay.
Right.
And we have what? Okay, so keep going. Oh, then we have these metal figurines, and he sent a paper along in which indicated he paid about $140 a piece for them. Okay. Then, there's a little cat in the shoe there. I don't know what he paid for that one. Do you remember?
There was no price on that one.
No price on that one. All right. And what else? And then the infamous Diecast trucks.
Yeah, these Pepsi delivery trucks, it looks like.
Yeah, right.
And then some Carorama
stuff, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Now,
so that's a good cross section of the things.
Okay. Now, first problem this guy's facing, right? There's not a single market for all this stuff.
It's all fractured.
The market's fractured.
Yes.
The Disney stuff has to go into the Disney market. The global Hummel stuff should go in a global market, although Hummel is the wrong thing here because it's just global. And the cars need to go into the Diecast car market or whatever, all right? And then the accessory figures like those elephants and stuff just go into some decorative hole out there, all right? So the first problem he has to have is it may be organized indoors, but you got to organize it in piles by sellability, okay? So they're going to have to, and you know, the die-cast pewter figures and so forth can just go into send it to the dump and melt it pile. But all right, back to this, like stuff like that, right?
Yeah,
okay.
He's right. A little stagecoach and horses. And,
yeah, lovely.
A fox and a cactus.
Weld a little clip on them and sell them as charms. You'll make more money. No, probably you would actually. But all right, so let's go back. Let's deal with Hummel first, the global figures first, right? Right. Okay, there it says the original Hummel miniatures, but I didn't see any in the pictures they sent. There must be some there, right? But I did see the markings on the bottom of some pieces that said global.
Yeah,
and just because
global right down here.
Yeah, right. But just because it says global doesn't mean it's Hummel. Hummel is just one line in the global product line. And if it doesn't have the IB Hummel mark on it or the proper Hummel marks, it's not a Hummel, it's just a figure made by Global. And so after they get all the Global mark stuff together, they have to separate whatever might be Hummel from whatever else. Now, when you go to this, let's stick with the Globals, although the example we're going to use will work for everything. Then you have to say, what's the collectability of this stuff? Well, fortunately, if it's a Hummel figurine, it's got marks on it. So you could just type in Hummel plus the mark number and boom, you're in business. All right. But the thing about, or you could type in Hummel miniatures, which you did, right? Yep. Type in Hummel miniatures. Okay, and there you got the Goose Girl in the upper right. All right, and she's selling for.
She sold for $75.
Wow, life is good.
And that was 3 months ago.
I would be selling them like heck for that kind of money. They're way overpriced at that range. But anyway, all right. But here's the deal: this stuff is all relatively new, so these prices are speculative. A lot of this stuff is still being held, like this guy stuff, right?
Yes.
And all of a sudden, if 50 or 100 pieces come into the marketplace at one time, what's going to happen?
It's going to be flooded.
Yep. So not only do you have a problem about getting rid of it, but you also have to, what was that, Snow White? No, Village Set 8-star tree.
Well, no,
around the tree. Okay, and what did that sell for?
80. And these are a little bit bigger. These are 2-inch tall, as opposed to.
But only $80.
Only $80. Winter Village.
Now here's an interesting phenomenon. Miniatures historically always sell better than the big ones because they make less of them. And it's a strange phenomenon. But I said we were going to talk a lot about interesting stuff here. But okay, so my attitude is that this is a market where the secondary market prices are highly speculative. And therefore, if they're bringing 40, 50, 60, $75, my comment would be get rid of those suckers as fast as you can. All right?
Mm-hmm.
But the problem is, what are your options? There's no more Hummel collectors clubs. There's no more Hummel conventions. In fact, Global isn't in business that much anymore. Hummels are gone. They don't make new Hummels. Okay? So the situation is that right now you have people trying to fill in sets, so this is a good time to sell. But once all the people that care get one, the market's going to collapse. So right now it's okay for that stuff. The interesting ones are the Disney figures, which you also checked out, right?
Yes.
And there you found some of them are doing very well. There's the white the white rabbit we saw earlier, right?
Right. So here's the white rabbit, and he sold for $46 last September.
Right. But now wait a minute. Whoa, slow down. But now you have to understand, what did it cost to get that 46 bucks? All right?
Yeah.
First of all, it's on eBay.
Right.
So you lose 15%. $6.
That's about right. Yes.
Right. But so you had to pay somebody to take the picture, or you had to take the picture, and you had to do the listing. That took time.
Right. You're investing your time.
And if it took an hour, and you're only paying yourself $15 an hour, which is cheap, now you've got 15 plus 6. You're only getting $20 for it. And you may say, well, okay, but they got it free. Yeah, well, you know what? But imagine the amount of time it's going to take to list drawers and drawers full of this stuff on an individual basis on a site like eBay. And then to pack it up and ship it and do all the rest of it.
Yeah, that's going to take forever.
This is the case where time is an enemy in terms of disposal. I mean, it's nice to see all these numbers. It really is nice to see all these numbers, right? Now, here's a nice thing about it. One of the ways you can make your money easier is to lot the stuff. Instead of trying to sell it individually, do what this person did. Put a lot of 16 of them up there, right?
Right.
Okay, now you have to take one picture of the 16, maybe a couple of detailed shots, right?
Yes.
You still got to pay eBay. It's 15%. Okay, so you're going to lose 66 bucks. But 66 bucks deleted from 450 is still 375, and your picture time, you're making more money this way. So one of the things when you're trying to decide how to sell this stuff is lotting it may be advantageous in terms of return.
Yes.
Now,
these are not lotted in any specific way, other than the fact they're
other than the fact there's 16 of them there.
Right. There's 1990s Disney miniatures, but the characters were mixed.
Right. I mean, there's Little Mermaid, there's Snow White, there's Grumpy, there's Tiger. I mean, okay, Captain Hook. All right, fine. Now, let's go to the Diecast Cars. You start to look up the Diecast Cars and the Caravan ones, and they're the market shot, right?
Yeah.
You can't give these things away. I mean, they're not bringing, well, there's a bunch of Volkswagen buses, not quite like the one we have. But I think that's sold for less than $20, right?
Yeah. So,
so to you pay eBay to $3 and take your time to do all this, you might as well put a whole bunch of them in one pile, okay? Because there's no viable secondary market for these things. So let's do one more thing. You get those Diecast Pepsi trucks?
let's look for them.
Now here you would hope the soda pop collectors would have some influence and pay a little bit more and keep the price up. You would hope. Okay. Let's try a Diecast Pepsi truck. Whoops.
Those are Hot Wheels.
No, Cat. You have Diecast? Put slush metal.
All right, so something similar.
No, you don't have anything similar yet.
Not.
All right. Right, and this is another thing too. When you do this, you got to spend time. It better be apples to apples, right?
Yeah, right.
So now you can either start looking through pictures, or you can try playing with the listing. So try slush metal Pepsi truck.
I think
collector edition, or try collector edition Pepsi truck.
All right. Well, first of all, let's look at this yellow truck here that they've got.
Yeah. Find it.
I think it's the same thing. All right,
$10. Boy, another loser.
Okay, so what'd you say? Slush what?
Oh, that's all right. That's fine. What you got is we're good enough. Now, here's the deal. Here's this air with all that stuff, right? Now, yes. In the case of the people that inherited this, they don't need the money. So how do you get rid of it? Okay. You know what my advice is? Make it somebody else's problem as soon as possible. So you can do it one of two ways. You can donate it to Goodwill, and take a tax write-off. You know, you have a list there. You can look up some of the stuff on eBay, and you can use the eBay prices. All right, and maybe when you're all done, you have a donation of $20,000 or $30,000. All right.
Yeah.
Well, you got to be careful because any donation over $5,000, you need a professional appraisal. All right. So you give it, say, in over 4 years, and take the $5,000 clean, and you don't need any documentation other than a letter from Goodwill saying thank you. All right.
That's
or whether it's or Goodwill or whatever place you want to do it. All right. That's one way to do it, right?
Yes.
The other way is to put it all up on eBay with one big lot. Start at $1,000. Make somebody else's problem. Now, the one area that I would be a little the Disney stuff is always fascinating because Disney collectors are crazy people, and there is a Disney collectors convention every year. All right, if you let's suppose when they got all the Disney stuff together, they had several hundred pieces. All right.
Yeah.
Well, one, you could lot it on eBay like we talked about, or you could find out where the nearest Disney convention is. And if there's an auction there or there's a display there, maybe you go there and find someone to sell it. All right.
Yeah, that's another good idea.
Now, but the thing about it is, what you don't do is call an auctioneer unless you hate them, because no auctioneer wants to be dealt with this. It's labor intensive to organize it and list it and sell it. And that's where people say, okay, well, $40 and I've got 50 figures at $40 a piece. Fine on the surface. But then you know, when I ask somebody, what did you make? And I said, factor in your time, factor in the hardware and software you had to buy to get it up on the net, factor in the internet costs, factor in this, factor in that. Because you're not in business. This isn't business overhead. This is cost to you. I mean, it's cost as business overhead too, but there you hopefully do enough volume to justify it, right?
Yeah.
So, you know, what seems like easy, send it to auction. No. Do it yourself. Are you crazy? So finally we come to Harry's final solution. Grandchildren. No.
Give them to the grandkids?
No. Find a young grandchild that's 14 or 15 and say to them, you can list it on eBay and you can have half the money you get.
Yeah, that'll keep them busy.
Keep them busy. Teach them a little business entrepreneurship, right?
Yeah.
You can give them all the money they can get. It's okay. But the other thing is, and then give them one final piece of advice, and this is how we're going to end this show. Don't spend your money on this crap.
Well, I've heard that before from you.
Yes, you have.
Franklin Mint and Danbury Mint and all those things, stay away.
I should say. But here's the name of the game. The guy loved it, and he died loving it. What did he care?
Right. It kept him happy. He was happy collecting it. And
if you're happy, clap your hands, or whatever.
Yeah. And what did you say last week? The mark of a true collector is someone who dies with their
stuff, right? That's my theory.
Yeah.
Well, look at this. We made it through a half an hour again. I told you we chew up half an hour on this topic.
Yeah. Well,
but anyway,
fun.
But wait a minute. We're talking about the topics that interest us. We'd like to talk about, we did talk about a topic to do to one of our viewers because we used the material from them.
Yes.
But we would like to talk about topics that interest the viewers. If you have objects or a pile of objects you want us to talk about on the air, or you have a question about how the antiques and collectibles trade work, we have an easy way for you to submit that to us. Community@worthpoint.com. Send an email, community@worthpoint.com. Community@worthpoint.com. By the way, if you don't agree with me, send a criticism to community@worthpoint.com. I don't mind passing along words when people don't agree with me. It's okay.
That's right.
Yes.
You actually like that sometimes.
I've never lost any sleep over it, I'll tell you that.
Okay. All right. Well,
here we are.
we've wasted another half an hour, so that's good. And
I don't want to steal the Car Talk guy's line. You wasted another perfectly good hour. That's why we keep the show to a half an hour, so you don't waste a perfectly good hour.
That's right. So next week we'll see you from Florida, right? Is that correct?
Washington, D.C.
Washington. Oh.
Yes, I'm going down next Wednesday. I'll be in Washington, D.C. For a meeting of the Citizen Stamp Advisory Committee. For those of our viewers that don't know what I do, I am one of 13 people that advise the Postmaster General on the subject matter and design of stamps. When you go into the post office, and I know this may cause you to throw up, every stamp you see in there I had something to do with. So if you don't like the stamps, blame me and all the rest of the members of the committee too.
Okay, so you're going to pitch collectible plates stamp, right?
No, but actually, we've got caught up. We were behind when I first came on the committee 6 years ago, and we are now working on 2020 and 2021.
Fun.
However, I hate to tell you this, but one of the things we have to have in the can, ready to go, is a presidential stamp for every president. And so we will obviously be discussing a stamp for the new president. I will not mention his name for fear of upsetting some of our viewers. But what can I say?
That's right. Well, I'm thinking some modern art, some
we used to be able to do a lot of that kind of stuff. But I'll just tell you, the right clearances today, if you want to picture a piece of art and it's in a museum and the artist is still alive, you have to get clearance from the museum, the artist, any of his heirs. If the artist is dead, all of his heirs, and if the subject can be identified or it has any people in it, you have to get clearances from all those people.
Yeah. Well, I was thinking
we live in a litigious age.
Presidential portrait, and I see those all over Facebook. So finding one wouldn't be a problem.
We won't talk about it. That's something for another show.
Yeah, but maybe not.
Have a good night.
That one's over drink some other time. All right, Harry. Well, we'll see you next week then.
You will, sir.
All right. Thanks for stopping by, and see you next week.